The first episode of season 2 of Are You Afraid of the Dark? This one's called The Tale of the Final Wish, and it's told by you-know-who. Just take a wild freaking guess. It's Kristen. She's taking this place over. There's 7 members of this Midnight Society. Well, there were 7 members until Eric left. And actually, in an interesting trivia of this episode, apparently DJ McHale said that Eric, who left the last episode of season 1, left the episode because the actor wanted to be paid more. This seems a little bit of a suspicious trivia. I actually couldn't find the interview where he said this, but someone wrote it online, so it must be true. My guess is maybe his parents wanted him to be paid more, or maybe someone just freaking made this up. But either way, it's a good tale, you could say, of a greedy Canadian actor. So they're down to 6 members of the Midnight Society. And some of these kids haven't even gotten a chance to tell their own tale. Kristen, this is her 3rd one. She did Tale of the Hungry Hounds, Tale of the Prom Queen, now she's doing this one, and she does the one 2 episodes from now, Locker 22. So Mrs. Goody Two-Shoes herself, Kristen, she likes fairy tales, and that's what we get in this episode, and this episode is weird. So far we haven't gotten any bizarro episodes, but this is a dream episode, mixing in fairy tales and an annoying antagonist. I've noticed in this series, they really like antagonists that are goofy. I don't know if they're trying to play off fairy tales or what exactly it is, but we keep running into characters that are larger than life, overweight, have gigantic beards, and jump around. And we get that in this episode too.
You took my book, clutched it to your chest. What's so wrong about wanting to live in a place where dreams come true? Looked out at the first star and said,
yeah, get ready to experience this character. And this is a piece of trivia I do believe. It says he had difficulty remembering his lines during this episode. That makes complete sense. He sounds like Pee Wee Herman and looks like Adam Duritz from Counting Crows. Ooh, do I hate this character. A guy by the name of the Sandman, played by Bobcat Goldthwait, who you may have heard of because he actually is friends with Jimmy Kimmel and helps him with the Jimmy Kimmel Live show. Also directed the very controversial movie Windy City Heat with Jimmy Kimmel, where I've heard people talk about it. Supposedly they play a prank on a guy for like years on end. Sounds kind of mean. He was also involved in the Chappelle Show. So he went on to have a good resume, but he is quite annoying here. And Kristen starts off the story with some true facts, talking about how the original fairy tales by the Brothers Grimm were, well, grim. They featured blood, they featured people's killings, people's fingers being chopped off, and if anyone's read the original stories of Cinderella, Snow White, they are quite a bit darker than their G-rated animations would have you believe. I think Robert's Bridegroom is probably the most controversial. That one's literally just like a serial killer story. But it's Kristen's way of getting the Midnight Society kids ready for her fairy tale story. Because, you know, they want horror stories here, man. Give me some vampires. Don't give me some of that kiddie stuff. Come on. What do you think this is? Freaking Blue's Clues? This is rated TVY7. We're meeting in this Midnight Society. And also, don't tell anyone, but I have the censored version of Tupac's new album. So our main character is Jill Patterson. And it starts with her having a nightmare while reading Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And it plays on the real fear kids have. She begins checking under her bed. She thinks there might be a monster in her room. And just as she's checking under the bed, something grabs her legs. She goes and tells her parents. They check under the bed and find nothing. But she's a big girl. You know, she's 12 years old. She shakes it off. And it flashes to a scene in the school library where she gets a new fantasy book called The Sandman and Other Tales. No, not the Neil Gaiman one. I read those in high school. I thought that was super cool. And apparently The Sandman got developed into a Netflix series. Maybe I'll check that out. So there seems to be some connection between this Sandman book and the dreams she's about to have. They're also throwing some whimsical fairy tale melodies, where she walks to an open window and wishes upon a star and says, "What's so wrong about wanting to live in a world where dreams come true and you can wish upon a star? I wish I could, and I wish everybody would just leave me alone." And here's where things get bizarre. As much as it sets it up to be a fantasy, they're constantly referencing fairy tales, and she's reading this book, The Sandman. They throw that out the window, and she gets transported into this world with a bunch of clocks, a black background, and an obvious fog machine that's illuminating the floor. We get our first taste of the Sandman, and this is the character you're going to be dealing with the rest of the episode. Once again, just a little too goofy. I know it's a kids episode, but I feel like they can make the villains more menacing. They do that sometimes. The next episode, they have a Nosferatu vampire that's quite scary. But here, they're just trying to go more for laughs, and I find this character not funny, not scary. And the worst part about this episode, and I think if I was 12 years old, I would think the same thing. The episode just loses its direction. They're obviously limited by budget and time to build an amazing fairy tale world, but do they really have to have a dream sequence that goes on for the rest of the episode? She's in her own fairy tale, and the Sandman is saying that he granted her wish, and everyone will sleep forever in the land of the Nod. I guess that's where we are, the land of the Nod. Nodding to sleep. We get an entrance of the Queen of Hearts from Alice in Wonderland who tries to chop off her head. Maybe she should have just been the main villain. It's stealing it from another fairy tale, but it's better than the Sandman guy. Then she realizes what we all realize as we're coming out of consciousness, that we are actually in control of our dreams. So she's going to take control of her destiny. She's not going to let this Sandman keep her there in the land of the Nod. She changes her destiny and smashes the hourglass and gets transported back into her bed. Overall, I think this is the worst episode so far. Jake and the Leprechaun is the second worst. But all the others have been good. They just didn't really pull off a fairy tale setting. And if she's supposed to be in her own fairy tale, maybe they could have her be in her own fairy tale. She just opens up doors and other fairy tale creatures try to kill her. Develop a story like they did with the Pinball Wizard, where he's now in a pinball machine and he goes on a journey. He has to go on a quest. She doesn't ever go on a quest. She just gets chased around and then hits an hourglass and gets saved. Hell, the Pinball Wizard episode had more of a fairy tale setting than this one. It actually had a princess he had to save. It had bad guys that he had to defeat with a water gun. He had different levels he had to go to in the video game. This has none of that. And once again, it's written by DJ McHale. Maybe this guy's doing a little too much. He's so involved in the series and is writing almost every episode. Maybe he needs to take a breather. But still impressive. He wrote it and directed it. It says written by Chloe Brown, but that's DJ McHale. This isn't one of the higher rated episodes, and a weird way to kick off season 1. Especially considering how good the next episode is. Nosferatu Vampires, a theater that's closing, a comprehensible story. So stay tuned for that one. We'll be covering that one very soon. We're going to be covering every single episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark? We've already done Monsters, Fear Itself, Tales from the Dark Side. We're working on Black Mirror and Mystery Science Theater 3000. Thank you, and stay tuned for The Tale of the Midnight Madness.